Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next in our edition of IBTM Meets, an opportunity where we at IBTM have the chance to get to know some of the leading industry figures within the business events industry, some of our friends and colleagues, and today is no exception. I'm delighted to be here, joined here by Isabel Bardinet, who of course is the CEO of the European Society of Cardiology, and also the IBTM 2019 Personality of the Year Award. So it is great to have someone of such a great caliber here with us today. Isabel, very warm welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Very nice. I'm very happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Great, thank you. And as I said, Isabel, everything today is really an opportunity, maybe on a more informal basis, to get to know a bit about you and a bit about your journey through the industry. Some of the passion in the industry that, of course, is abundant in a role like you do, and things like that. So we have a series of questions, and if it's okay with you, I will jump right in.
Great, let's go.
Brilliant. So firstly, tell us a little bit about yourself, Isabel, and how you got into the industry, the business events industry.
Yeah, that's an important question, because I came into the industry a little bit by chance. And the more I'm in it, the more I feel strongly that there should be a real clear education path to come to this industry. I've been here for longer than I would like to admit to, and I have never, ever been bored in the 30 odd years that I've been working in this industry. And I don't think many people can say that where they work, they've never had a day where they're bored, which is my case. So I think that really, I regret that the industry is recognized more thanks to a clear education recognition path. I think it would be necessary. I actually read law, and because I wanted to do history of religion, and my parents felt that that was probably the most useless thing on earth, I was told that I had to pay for it. So in fact, I started teaching English to adults, and one of them happened to be the president of, or the incoming president of, an international medical association.
Oh, wow.
And after about 6 months of this, he asked me to work with him on managing this medical association and the international congress that went with it. And so that's how I started. And then I joined an association management and congress organization company, which was SOCFI, and stayed there for nearly 15 years and worked a lot on international bids. Then I left and went to work for the Palais des Congrès in Paris, which was a very exciting moment, going from being a PCO and association management to a venue, and realizing that there are completely different constraints and obligations. And it was very, very interesting. I enjoyed it immensely. It was very exciting. And during that time, I tried to get the European Society of Cardiology to come to Paris with their congress. Instead of which, I ended up in the European Society of Cardiology at the time as their congress director, and then following that, I became their chief executive officer. And I've honestly had the honor of being that for the past 11 years now. So that's really very rapidly how this happened. But I think it is probably one of the most exciting areas to work in. You see all sorts of different people, different things, different organizations, different ways of looking at things. So it really is an extremely exciting environment. So I think those are really important things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is an incredible journey. And we've done a few of these now, and I think that there are some common themes that come through them. And the first of which I think you alluded to right at the top of that. A lot of us, I include myself in this, stumbled across our industry, quite frankly. But I think it is such a wonderful dynamic. You're never bored, as you say, and it's an industry that's truly global, full of some amazing people who start as customers and suppliers and colleagues and become friends. And it really does make it very, very endearing as an industry and very hard to leave. And I think, that story is a real testament to what a wonderful industry we work in. But I must admit, Isabel, I hadn't realized that you had such a varied experience. And you must be one of the very few people in our industry that has actually worked for a PCO, an association management company, and indeed with the Palais, an international venue, and obviously now a major association. So what would be maybe the top 3 things that you've learned around, you talked a bit about collaboration, but looking for the best outcomes from events from all those angles?
I think one word would come immediately to mind, and that word is curiosity. I think you have to be curious. You have to want to understand why is this happening? Why is this coming along? Why isn't this not happening, which is just as important? So I think curiosity, constant curiosity, is definitely one. I think that the other word I would talk about is team spirit.
Yes.
You can't organize anything if it's not with a team. So I think collaboration, curiosity, collaboration are definitely things which are very important and which I've been able to actually live and participate in, and which have been incredibly helpful and useful and satisfying to do. So I think that those would be the top ones. And then I have this bee in my bonnet that one should always learn. And so I think that it goes very much with the curiosity, which is keep an open mind for something new. New is not bad. New can be interesting. At the minute, new is a bit challenging.
Well, I was going to say, now more than ever, new is the one thing that is coming our way for sure. We're just not quite sure how and why and what it will look like. But yes, I think you're right.
So I think that those are really the major elements that I would put forward. And this industry gives that opportunity of being curious, of collaboration, and of looking at things differently or out of the box. So there aren't that many areas where you would have such a major opportunity for those 3 all at the same time. So I think that's really the 3 tip-top ones I would definitely quote. Great.
Yes, no, I couldn't agree more. I think you're right. Particularly, we always seem to say that at this particular time, whatever moment we are in, in history and in career journeys and whatsoever. But I think now, really, truly more than ever, those 3 things, and the curiosity, collaboration particularly, are vitally important. That's really, really interesting. And probably now more than ever, I think it's important that we're joined up as an industry. So, what do you maybe hope to see in the future with regard to business events and that collaborative effort that may make a real long-term difference with the outcomes, really?
Yeah, I think that's an extremely important and interesting question. I'm not sure we've got all the answers that should go to that question. Sure. But I do think that it's obvious that the industry needs to be very close to the associations and to the event generators, because that is going to be the future of the industry. I think that there also needs to be taking into account that there are probably new actors who will be part of this industry, which is all the online environment suppliers, creators, etc., who for the minute have not been major actors and who suddenly in the space of 2 months have become major actors. Yes. So I think that that's definitely, there's a whole new area that's going to be part of our industry. There's also, how do associations or events stay relevant?
Yes.
And what sort of event is going to be relevant? Are going to be lots of questions. So I think that really it would be important more than ever to actually be able to meet and to bring all those actors together. I know it's not the moment, we're not supposed to do that, but
No,
nevertheless,
but we
I
have that
do.
hope.
I think that is the only way forward. At some point, we will need to, envisage all these different things and see how we can work together. I've been very, very strongly and pleasantly surprised by the way that we've been working with a lot of, I'm going to call them partners because they're not suppliers, they're really partners in this environment. We have to pivot our Congress to an online version because we can't bring everybody together. People are complaining that 5,000 is a lot, so 35,000 is out of the question. But it's been extremely motivating to work with all the people who help us with AV, with booth building, with all sorts of things. They have been so helpful and trying so hard to help us do that pivot. I think that there is a lot of goodwill and a lot more interesting ideas than one would expect, which is already going around in the industry. The thing is, when and how can we pool that so that we find a common answer to it?
I think that's a really good analogy of it, Isabel, and I couldn't agree more. So as an organizer ourselves, we're seeing that kind of thing right the way, not just within, we host events all over, but, Reed Exhibitions globally is seeing a similar picture. All of the partners, you're right, they are partners, the cities, the destinations, the hotel partners, the venues, the travel management companies, the associations, all of the stakeholders. I think there is one common goal, and it is that we return as an industry. It would be far easier if we were able to meet, that is for sure. And hopefully, I'm sure, but that day will come very soon. And it will be an opportunity to explore all of those opportunities together. I genuinely think you're right. There's a lot of innovation, and it's about what is the solid basis for that innovation to build, to go forwards. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned the meeting, because I certainly believe that, the face-to-face meeting element of that is core to making that happen. And in turn, regardless of industry or whether you're a corporate, an association, an incentive agency, a destination, that desire to be able to restart economies is really, really important. So, hopefully we'll get that moment very, very soon. But you're right. I think the resilience again of the industry and the willingness of all the partners within it has been quite remarkable over the last, seems like a long, long time, but it's really just a few months, of course.
It seems as if it was years ago, I must say.
It does. It really, truly does. Great. Okay, well, maybe changing tack slightly, Isabel. Can you tell us a little bit more, for those that don't know, about European Cardiology and the events that you run, or your association and team run?
Yeah, the European Society of Cardiology is a medical association and is dealing with what still is today the number one public health problem. I'm saying this because it means that the association is a very large association because the problem is very large.
Sure.
And so this means that we have a very large medical congress, which currently is the biggest cardiovascular meeting every year. It's bigger than the American meetings. So up to 2019, we were somewhere between 33 to 35,000 delegates every year.
Wow.
So it's a large meeting. But we also organize cardiology subspecialty meetings, so arrhythmia, heart failure, interventional cardiology. So overall, we actually manage 11 congresses a year. Well, we managed 11 congresses a year, which meant that we were managing, give or take, 50 to 60,000 registrations a year.
Wow.
Overall, plus the exhibitions that go with them and that sort of thing. Then on top of that, we have all of the association activities, so board meetings, spring summits, winter meetings, education courses. So we're a pretty busy organization.
Wow, excellent. And if I may ask, how many people are involved within the organisation to pull what is a high number of events together?
Well, the number of people in the Congress organization is 40, and the overall staff, permanent staff of the ESC is 230.
Wow. So that's a sizable organisation, isn't it? But, with that number of events and the requirements generally, just, taking events aside, but to run an association of that scale is, you need all of those people. Wow. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. It's always nice to try and understand a bit more about, digging a little deeper in those kind of things. That's really good. And then maybe for a lot of people, we talk a lot about bid processes generally, of course, but maybe what's for people that are maybe new to the industry or don't understand it, what's involved in the bid process, and how the destinations sort of to be considered for hosting?
Well, there we would really consider two different categories. The categories for the subspecialty congresses. Our subspecialty congresses go from about 1,000 to 7,000 people. And there, of course, again, we're the European Society of Cardiology. So we would stay within very wide consideration of Europe. But we wouldn't organize in the United States, for example. So destinations for those congresses, we're always interested when the destinations get in touch and ask how the bid is set up. For the ESC Congress, the 30,000, 35,000 Congress, I'm afraid that's where we decide which destinations are capable of actually hosting what is, after all, a mid-sized city for 5 days. So there aren't that many of them. They know who they are. And they know who we are, and
I'm sure they do.
so there we have a very thick bid process booklet with all of the different criteria and all of the different demands that have to be fulfilled. And they're generally, we're the ones who get in touch with the destinations and say, well, we think you might be in a position to fulfill this. Have a look and see if you're capable of answering these different criteria, which is a very different bid process from a congress with 3,000 or 4,000 people, where basically you have a lot of possibilities.
Absolutely. And of course, some of your sub events are larger than those, some of the smaller association events as well. So I'm sure it's a huge consideration. As someone who runs a relatively sizable event in the city, we don't touch anywhere near those numbers. So it must be really some feat to pull that off. And presumably, Isabel, I'm assuming that legacy is also part of what you consider. So, what would you feel is the legacy that the events themselves leave behind in some of the cities you work with? So maybe again, if you think of the sub events and the ESC Congress potentially in isolation, because I appreciate there'll be two different answers to that question too.
Well, yes and no. As a medical association, we have a mission statement. And that mission statement is to reduce the burden of cardiovascular disease. So everything we do is linked to that mission statement. So it's very important for us to consider that when we go somewhere, we will be leaving some form of legacy to help reduce that burden of cardiovascular disease. What form the legacy will take can change depending on the topics. So we've had things like heart failure, where we do public awareness campaigns, because lots of people don't realize that they have heart failure, and we need them to do that. We had a 10-year campaign on the fact that women were having more cardiovascular diseases than men, and it was very difficult to get people to realize and know that.
Wow.
So we were working a lot with the local organizations and destinations to try and find the proper ways of getting those messages out there. We were in London a few years back, and there we left a heart trail so that people could go jogging and practice exercise and activity, which is a very strong prevention activity for cardiovascular. So depending on the destination and some of the topics, we try to identify. In the case of 2019, we did an awful lot around children, because in Europe there's a huge rise in obesity and diabetes.
Yes.
And this means that children get more cardiovascular diseases than they do diabetes and obesity. So this is something important. And in Paris, that was very much the focus that we took on. And we got the city to sign up to a heart healthy charter. So we try to adapt, but what generates it is our mission statement.
Definitely. And of course, again, it's fair to assume, I think, that without the sort of commitment and the desire and strategic direction of the city, then that's hard to realize. And, it will change city by city, of course. But, it's important that it is applicable to the local destination that you're, that in that year you're present within, and it aligns to their, their own belief strategy and what they would like the legacy to shape as well.
Yeah. So generally, we do every year a public event where we work with the city and have it, because our Congress is end of August, so have it somewhere in the center of the city where people can come and learn how to prevent cardiovascular disease, because that's really what we're about.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. It's a wonderful cause as well. And I think, it's nice to get an insight into, the events that are very different to the ones that we, of course, run. And many of our partners will be a lot closer to some of these medical associations than maybe we are as the organisers. And, we work, of course, across the sphere. But it's really interesting to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. And it must be very rewarding to know that, yes, you're running these events and the association, but of course the intention and the main aim of all of that is actually, prevention of disease, but, a far healthier and more positive lifestyle for everybody. That must be very rewarding.
It is, well, yes, it is. You have the impression that what you're doing has got a reason to it. And I think that does make things much easier to live with sometimes, particularly at the minute.
Yes, of course.
A bit complicated.
Yes, to say the least. Great. Okay. Well, I think we've got time maybe for one more question, Isabel, if that's okay. So obviously you won the Lifetime Achievement Award with IBTM in 2019. And I remember presenting that award to you in Barcelona. But what did that feel like? How did you feel? Because I think it was a surprise. Hopefully it was a surprise. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was a surprise, and it was an incredibly pleasant surprise. Working for the ESC is very time consuming, yes, and so I have the impression that most of the time I live in a sort of bubble with nothing but cardiologists and cardiology swirling around. And to a call saying, well, there are people out there who do realize that there are things happening here. It suddenly felt that all that had meant something, and that I felt incredibly honored and very, very deeply moved, quite frankly, because I just thought, wow, I didn't realize that anybody could see what we were trying to do, and that was extremely satisfying. I think that that was given to me, but I took it as being the team. And so indeed, it's very beautiful, as a matter of fact, award physically. And so it's in the welcome area of the Heart House so that everybody can see it, because for me it was really a team recognition. And I think that we all felt very, very excited about it. I mean, IBTM is an extremely important moment for the meetings industry, and getting that sort of recognition from such a wide group of people who have such a reach was quite impressive. I'm very excited about it.
Good. Well, it was impressive, yes, but it was very well deserved as well. I think it's testament to, to the great work that is done, of course, and the involvement that you have had within that. But I think it also touches on some of the things we've talked about today. We are very much an industry that is hugely connected. Very, very tight relationships. And on all trying to do the best job we can for the industry to, be it in the health region or healthcare industries, or be it in economic generation. But I think that's the one thing, and it's certainly our pleasure to see that all come together when you're under the ceiling in Barcelona and, under one roof, and the venue is alive with all of these people. But I'm glad that you liked it. It was certainly special to give it over, and I still remember your face on the evening, and it was wonderful.
I was absolutely stunned, and I think that, as I said, I think this industry is absolutely fantastic. I think it's an extraordinary environment. It's multifaceted. It's got incredible potential. It's got fascinating people, and such different people from all the different areas. And that sort of recognition means an awful lot. And so I think that it was, and it still is, as I say, something which is extremely important. So I'm extremely proud of it. And I went and boasted about it to all of my family and friends. So clearly.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. And so you should. So you absolutely should. That's great. Well, Isabel, I think that's really good. That's probably a great place to close today. So thank you for sharing your story. I'm fascinated by the fact that you understand and love this industry, and that passion comes across in abundance. So it's great to see that. But also, I think you've seen so many angles of the industry with that experience you have, and it's great for people that are listening today to be able to understand that. I'm sure, and particularly some of the younger generation in our industry, it gives them probably a real beacon for hope as to how rewarding it can be. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's great to have had you here today, rather. Thank you for taking the time out. I appreciate times are very, very busy in these new times, but it really has been a great value to have you here. So thank you for your time, and we look very much forward to meeting again someday very soon, face to face. If not in advance of IBTM in December, then certainly at IBTM World. So take care and stay safe, and thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you, and keep up the good work, because you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye.